Hi everyone, my name is Summer Matchett and I am a community educator and case manager with the Alzheimer's Project in Tallahassee, Florida. It's great to be live with you all today. I am really going to be going into a presentation called Understanding Communication and Understanding Dementia. We live in such a strange time right now with having to be home 24/7. So this presentation is geared towards people who are caring for their loved one at home, who perhaps was not expecting to be spending this much time with their loved one. So yeah, this is where we're doing some refreshers on how to, really, work through these difficult communication barriers that we have with our loved one. And we know that keeping people with dementia busy is top priority, and so today we're going to go over ways to respond to some of their behaviors, and then also ways to keep them occupied during this season of just having to be at home 24/7. Wow. So it's great to partner with Your Life today. I'm happy to be partnering with Your Life of Tallahassee, and let's go ahead and get started. So before I go over how to talk with someone with dementia, or before I'm able to, explain how to get into the mind of someone who has dementia, we first, kind of have to define what it is. So dementia is anything that is associated with language and memory loss in people, and a progressional disease that can go on into the point of decline. And oftentimes the most common form of dementia is Alzheimer's disease. And so I always like to start off by saying that dementia is an umbrella term, just like we have cancer is an umbrella term, and we have many different forms of cancer like breast cancer, brain cancer, lung cancer. The same is true for dementia. We have that umbrella term, and all the different forms fall underneath that. So we may have Parkinson's disease, we may have Lewy bodies dementia, vascular dementia, frontotemporal lobe dementia, but they all fall under that umbrella of the dementia as a disease. And I always say, one person with dementia is just one person with dementia. There are going to be behavioral things that happen across the board with different forms of dementia, but it's hard to say, if I talk with one person, they say, oh, my loved one does this. I might talk with someone else whose loved one does something totally different in their behavior or the ways that they decline. So just want to say that before we get started. So dementia, it's not just memory loss too. Dementia affects all different parts of a person's abilities. It affects our orientation, our judgment, our language skills, and spatial skills. So it's important to also go over, normal aging versus dementia. In normal aging, which we're all going to go through at some point in our life, with normal aging, there is a tendency to forget, really common everyday things. So we're all gonna, lose our keys and leave our keys in an unexpected place sometimes, or we may leave our coffee cup in an unexpected place sometimes as well. But we can usually recall where we left it, and we can go and find where it was. Or we've all walked into a room and said, why did I walk in here? What was the purpose of being in here? And later remember, oh, it's because I needed to get the, coffee that I left in here, or I needed to put the groceries away. So those are going to be things that, every person experiences at some point in their life. But with dementia, memory loss is different. It's a memory loss that affects our daily functioning. So a person with dementia may misplace their keys, sure, but when they find their keys, they may think, do I have a car? What is this supposed to be used for? Or perhaps they get in the car and they drive down the road and they don't remember where they're going, or what they're doing, why their purpose for being in the car was. So dementia is different in that way. Also, dementia can affect our personalities, especially with frontotemporal lobe dementia and In type 2, people can become uncharacteristically not like themselves. They could be the sweetest person their whole life, and then all of a sudden, have dementia and become very angry, or the opposite can happen. They could have been a very angry person their whole life and become very sweet. So like we said earlier, one person with dementia is just one person. So now that we've gone over, normal aging versus dementia, I would like to talk a little bit about the different forms before we go into some of these skills that are going to help us with managing our loved ones' behavior while we're with them so often during this time of COVID. And I also want to mention too that caregivers are going through so many different things right now, and some people are caring for loved ones at home, while others are caring for their loved one in a facility, in a memory care, or perhaps at Your Life, or some of these other memory care places that we have here in town. And so we have to understand that caregiving just looks different right now. It's just a different time for everyone, and perhaps you had your loved one placed in a memory care facility and then had no idea that this would be happening, and now you're wondering, how can I interact with my loved one? How can I continue to check in with them, make sure they're okay? So we'll talk about that a little bit more as well. But I know I always like to touch on this when I'm talking about dementia, just the different types, because it can get kind of confusing. But really common types of dementia are Alzheimer's, of course, is the most common form. 5 million people in the world have Alzheimer's disease, and it is the one that is the most categorized with three distinct stages, beginning, middle, and end stage dementia. And so we know that, beginning stages, we start to notice the memory loss and notice, my loved one's acting, a bit different, and they may start to forget things that they would have remembered in their everyday life. In the middle stages, persons with dementia can develop some, behavioral problems, like wandering is a really common one. They can also have some personality changes, like we talked about earlier, and so many different things, like repetitive questions and asking the same question over and over again, telling the same stories over and over again. And then lastly, in the final stage of Alzheimer's disease, is when functional abilities start to become affected. So we know that Alzheimer's disease eventually ends in a total loss of all functional abilities, where a person needs total one-on-one care. And usually in middle and end stages, people really need to be told what to do. In every task, they need to be told how to do something or what to do. So this is just to go over, in summary of what the three stages are. Another form of dementia that is common is vascular dementia, and that most often happens after a stroke, where people have loss of blood supply to the brain. So it's really common to see people with dementia type symptoms after having a stroke. Frontotemporal lobe, we've talked about that. That has two types. The one type type 2, you see a lot of behavioral personality changes. In type 1, a person can develop aphasia, or just an inability to put sentences together and put words together. So your loved one may be experiencing that as well. And again, I'm kind of saying some of these behaviors that you might see, but they can be present in all forms of dementia, really. Another form of dementia I haven't mentioned is Lewy bodies disease. Lewy bodies is associated with abnormal brain cells. So oftentimes people with Lewy bodies will have hallucinations or see things that aren't there, or hear things that aren't there. Or maybe they'll see a pattern, on a carpet or on the wall and think that it's moving. That's another really common problem that people with Lewy bodies dementia may develop. And also Parkinson's disease, one that many people are familiar with. But in Parkinson's disease, it's a degenerative disorder of the central nervous system. So people with Parkinson's disease will be likely to, slow down. Their body movements are going to slow down, as well as their brain. So there's my overview of the different forms of dementia, just to get everybody on the same page of what we're kind of dealing with here. And please feel free, if you're watching live, if you have questions, feel free to type them in the message box below. I am also happy to answer any questions you may have. And if something I'm saying rings true to you, or maybe you've heard this and you hear a type of dementia that your loved one has, feel free to comment below so we can know the group that we're talking with here today. So I appreciate everyone who's on right now. This is a good time. It's good to be talking with everyone and connecting, because we miss so much connecting with our caregivers and our clients during this time. So we appreciate you. So now we're going to focus on getting into the mind of a person who has dementia. I want to walk us through a reflection, and it's a reflection to help us see what a person with dementia experiences in the day-to-day. So what I would like for you to do, and I'll walk us through this, I would like for you to think of 3 things that you love to do. These are 3 things that make you who you are. Your favorite things, so they could be riding a bike, or spending time with grandchildren, or reading a book, knitting, playing guitar. Pick 3 things. Watching TV, who knows what it is, but pick three things that you love to do, and I'll give you some time to reflect on those things. And then I'm going to walk us through this activity. So I'll wait just a few minutes. Okay, great. Now that you have your 3 things that you are thinking of, I would like for you to imagine that you have just been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. I would like for you to think about what it would be like if someone told you that you could no longer do the first thing that you thought of. So this thing that you love to do, you can no longer do anymore. Now, I want you to think about how that would feel if somebody took that one thing away that you love to do. If you could comment below and say how that would make you feel, I'd love to hear. It probably doesn't make you feel very good. So now I want for you to remember one of the second things that you thought of. Due to the damage to your brain caused by Alzheimer's disease, you don't do the second activity as well as you once did. It takes you longer than before, and you need assistance from someone else to do this thing. Gosh, that must stink. To have assistance from someone else to do this activity that you love. Sounds like that would be pretty hard. Let's see, it looks like Yvonne said she'd be angry. Oh yeah. I was expecting an answer like that. Someone would be angry. It's frustrating. It's really frustrating to have these things that you love taken away from you. Now I want you to think about that third thing that you wrote down or thought about. Now your family is concerned about your safety and the safety of others when you do this thing. Somebody wrote, I would probably, oh, hi, Barbara. Some of these people I have talked with before, hi. You'd probably quit doing it, right? Probably just give up. Especially if someone's telling you it's not safe. But I love this activity because it points to the fact that people with dementia, just as much as we're aware that we are losing skills and abilities, people with dementia are so aware that they're losing their skills and their abilities, and they are frustrated, and they are angry, and they're sad. They're grieving a loss. We're grieving the loss of them and their personality, but they're grieving these losses. So every day is frustrating. So what they feel is anger, and exactly anger. They especially, I don't know if any of you have ever had an experience like this when you've tried to help someone with dementia or tried to ease them along, and they say, nope, I can do it myself. Or they say, don't tell me what to do. I'm not a child. I can do it myself. We wonder, wow, why are they being so harsh? It's because they want to do it on their own. They don't want help. So yeah, anger. Don't treat me like I'm a child. Also, depending on someone's personality too, they may withdraw. They may choose to distance themselves from others. They might think, leave me alone. They might self-isolate themselves because they're embarrassed and they don't want to show that they can't do that thing anymore. So they self-isolate themselves, withdraw. Something else that can happen is a person may also have deep insecurity, and so they cling to their caregiver. This is something we call shadowing. So they will shadow their caregiver. They'll follow them around everywhere, and they'll ask, what am I supposed to do next? What's the next thing to do? And it's because they don't know. You're their security blanket. You're their safety. So one of the most wonderful things is the virtual dementia tour that often happens in Tallahassee, where you get to experience what it's like to have dementia. But this exercise is a way of showing you, these are the feelings. These are what they are feeling. And whether we know it or not, all people, we act from the way that we feel. We act from our emotions. And so this is, kind of the detective work that we have to do as caregivers, is think, what are they feeling right now? That's going to help me understand why they're doing what they're doing. So we'll go over that later as well. It's something that we like to call the 3 R's. At this time also, I would like to ask if you wouldn't mind commenting below, perhaps saying if you're a caregiver, or saying if you are caring for your loved one in a facility or at home, just to say hi, so we can just keep a track of who is attending this awesome live that Your Life has been able to put on, so we can keep track of the number of people that are joining us today. That would be great. Thank you so much. So now we have to talk about how our brain is affected in different ways, but the things that happen on the left side of the brain are often different than things that happen on the right side of the brain. I always love to use the phrase of, people say, oh, I'm like a left brain person, or I'm a right brain person. So people that are, right-brained tend to be more social, more chit-chatty, more, artsy, spiritual, kind of right-brained type people. People that are left-brained, maybe you're more type A, having to, be able to sort through things that are logical, like math or science, and you're always, structured, and you've got a plan for everything. We have to remember that our loved ones can kind of be either or. So when there's damage caused to those sides of the brain, different things happen. So when someone has damage on the left side of their brain, they may have trouble with their vocabulary. They may have trouble finding the meaning of words, or finding the names for things. They may get their words flip-flopped around. For instance, someone with dementia might be sitting at a table, and they really want that glass of water that's right in front of them. So they look at it and they say, can you hand me that, they might search for the word, and they may say, can you hand me that bowl? Or can you hand me that drinky thingy? And they're really close to what the word is, but they can't quite get it out. So they may flip-flop words around. Another example of this is, let's say that you have a loved one who picks up a hairbrush, okay, the word brush, but they pick up brush and they go to maybe brush their teeth with it. Okay, sounds kind of silly, right? But that can happen. The word brush, it could be a hairbrush or it could be a toothbrush. So, they may flip-flop that around. They may forget what things are supposed to be used for. Another problem with language on the left side is having trouble understanding what others say, comprehension. So you may ask someone a question and they may respond to you 2 minutes later, or there's a beat and there's a good amount of time before they respond to you. So it takes longer for them to process, if they can even process it at all. Being able to put words together in a meaningful way. I've talked with caregivers, they say that their loved one just kind of babbles and they say, da-ba-dee-doo, be-ba-ba. They might just kind of shout out some different sounds. And it's important for us to remember that that is their way of trying to communicate with us. But we have to figure out kind of what those words mean to them. Or I've even heard an example of someone saying that their loved one would just use the word water for everything. So they'd be pointing to the door and saying water, or they would be, talking to you and saying water. And so water meant a lot of different things. They soon realized that when he pointed to the door and said water, that meant bathroom. Oh, you want to go to the bathroom? Okay. But we have to be problem solvers and detectives almost to figure out what word are you using to try to communicate what it is that you need. Now, if someone has problems on the left side of their, on the right side of their brain, this is where things like social chit chat happens, things like music happens. So it's good to have this side of the brain, activated as often as possible. We know that socialization is the most important thing for people that have dementia. It is so important. Through a study that the FSU College of Medicine did, they discovered that loneliness increases the risk of getting dementia by 40%. That's almost half. So we want to remember that during these times of isolation, during these times of quarantine, for them to have social interaction, whether that be over a Zoom call with a family member, or having you sit down and talk with them, having intentional conversations, or doing things like virtual programs through the Alzheimer's Project. We have great virtual programs going on right now for music and for bingo and socialization. So, but we have, that's my plug right there for some of our services during this time. But it's so important, it really is. And especially music. People with dementia respond so well to music, and what a lot of caregivers don't realize is that that music can help them in their day-to-day functioning. So if you're having a hard time getting your loved one to bathe, or if you're having a hard time getting them to just get up and move to the next room, we suggest maybe put on some music that they like. Might lighten the mood, and it's amazing what can happen. They'll say, oh, I love this song, and we'll forget that, you're trying to bathe them. They're just enjoying the music. So music is so, so important. And if you're having a hard time communicating with your loved one, you may want to put on some music that's specific to them. So not just general music that, might be played at, a respite program, but really think to what the music that they liked in their 20s was. Because when that music is played, it can take them back and get them talking about all sorts of things. But also when there's damage on the right side of the brain, people may not have their filter anymore. We all know what that means, right? Maybe we've all thought something in our minds, but we didn't say it out loud because it just wouldn't be appropriate, or we are able to have that filter up, right? Well, people with dementia don't have that filter anymore. So what's on their minds is coming out. It can come out inappropriately. It could be something where they say someone is attractive, or they may use language that grandma never used language. Maybe she was a Southern belle and now she's using curse words, and that can be very unsettling for caregivers to see this person begin to say certain things and act a certain way. So we encourage you that in moments where your loved one may be, not having a filter and saying things that are inappropriate, to know that it's not them, it's the disease, and it's just the loss of their filter. And also to people with dementia, if they grew up in a religious family, a spiritual family, and certain prayers were said throughout their life, they can easily remember and recall those because they're repetitive and they're way back there where music is stored. So know that sometimes that can be a way of interacting as well. So some of the additional skills that can be lost with people with dementia, I'm going to go over some really common ones that are true across the board for different forms of dementia. So self-monitoring and inhibition decline. So like we said, there's no filter, so they're not able to, manage some of the things they used to be able to. Perhaps they, decide to go use the restroom in a place that is not the bathroom. They may, may not make it there, and they just don't have the self-monitoring to not do that. So that can be very challenging for caregivers when that happens. Self-monitoring and inhibition, and also wayfinding. They may get lost in their own homes, or they may wander trying to get to home when they already are home. And it's really common for people with dementia to say, I want to go home. I'm ready to go home. And as a caregiver, we may think, oh, you are home. I don't know what else to do. Or we may remind them and say, no, you are home. It's okay. So I won't go into too much detail about that yet, because I have a set of skills that I'll teach you later on called entering into their reality. You can probably tell what I mean by that just by hearing what it's called. But especially when someone's saying they want to go home, sometimes home is not a location. Sometimes home is a place of security and comfort. So whatever we can do to enter into their reality, to provide for them what they need at the time, whether that be a blanket or a snack, since they're home, we can make them feel like they're at home and say, I'm so sorry you're distressed today. Can I bring you something? Versus you are home. Because I'm sure many caregivers, and you can definitely comment on this if you agree, you'll never win an argument with someone with dementia. They will always win. And so sometimes we have to go with the flow and believe their story and enter into their reality. So something else to remember with people with dementia is they are losing their peripheral vision. So we know that peripheral vision, allows me to see to the sides of me, to look around. And so if somebody were to walk up to me and be kind of right here, I could kind of see them. I could say, oh, hey, I see you. But someone with dementia, their line of vision becomes about just like that, pretty narrow. So it's almost like a horse that has blinders on it. They really can't see past this. So if you are approaching someone with dementia, the one thing you don't want to do is approach them from the side or approach them from the back. You don't want to tap them on the back and say, hey, Miss June, and oh, that's a made up name, by the way. But, they'll get startled because they'll feel you, but they won't be able to see you. So what you'll have to do is when you're approaching someone with dementia, you really want to approach them from the front. You want to walk all the way around them, make eye contact with them so that you are directly in their line of vision before you talk with them, because they may not know what to do if you approach them from the side or the back. And it's also important to remember that people with dementia, their safety awareness declines while their curiosity remains. So you may have a loved one that may not be thinking about all the oncoming traffic that's coming down the road when they decide to cross the street. Okay, so they're go mode. They're on their way, but they're not thinking about all the safety hazards. And I share that, I may be sharing that, and some people might think, oh yes, my loved one is not thinking about their safety, they are going. And for some of you, this may be new information that this could be something that happens, in the future that's to be, anticipated. But just to remember that people with dementia do like to wander, and they like to walk out and go where they're going. So we, one of the things that we have with the Alzheimer's Project is our Project Lifesaver program, and it's a tracking device that they can wear on their wrist. and it's connected to the sheriff's office. So if your loved one were to wander and they need to be located, you can call the sheriff's office and locate them. So please know that during this time of COVID, we are still open and able to assist with different services, not in person, but we could definitely assist with Project Lifesaver if that's something that you need. Also, people with dementia, they have trouble with sleep and time disturbances. So I talked with a caregiver once that said, you know, one of the worst things I ever did in caregiving was make Brenner for dinner. So breakfast for dinner. They, you know, made eggs and bacon and pancakes for dinner, which is so good. I could eat that right now. But they made that, and so their loved one thought, oh, it is morning, so I'm going to spend the rest of this night like it's morning, and they went about their day. And their loved one and their caregiver was up the whole rest of the night, and it, you know, really, like, they lacked sleep a lot that night. So so we have to be aware of, you know, time disturbances and what time of day we choose to do things, because it may confuse our loved one. People with dementia also experience sundowning, and sundowning is they become more agitated in the evenings when the sun is going down. So it's because they don't know what time it is, and so they can get very agitated and restless when that happens. So as a caregiver, if you're caring for your loved one at home, it might be a good idea to shut the curtains when the sun is going down so that they're not confused about what's happening, or dim the lights maybe. Something that we wouldn't know unless we were, you know, talking about dementia. It's just one of those things that happens with people. And of course, there's the obvious that people with dementia have, is confusion about people and places. For instance, my great-grandfather had Alzheimer's disease, and when I went in to go visit him, I looked very much like my mother when she was my age. And so he says to me, "Hi, Darlene," and is treating me like I'm his daughter. Well, I'm his granddaughter, and I'm not Darlene, I'm Summer. And so just to be aware that they may confuse you. They may not know, you know, who you are, or they may think that you're someone else, or you could be their wife, you could be their husband, and they may ask you, you know, why are you in my house? Who are you? In situations like that, sometimes it's good to have prompter pictures, and you know, we could show them a picture from our wedding day and we say, "Yeah, this is me, you know, remember me, I'm your wife." But sometimes it's best to actually have a picture of the two of you and what you look like now. If they see a picture of young you and then they see you now, and everybody changes and looks different over time, they may think, "That's not my wife." But it's good to show accurate pictures sometimes, so that they are not as confused as they would be. This is not easy stuff. This is challenging stuff that every day caregivers are seeing new behaviors and new changes. And so nothing prepares you for this. Nothing prepares you for caring for a person with dementia. And I always tell caregivers, you know, remember to be patient with yourself, and to not expect yourself to have all the knowledge and know exactly what to do all the time with your loved one, because this is a language all of its own, and we have to learn their language, really. And something I'll touch on a little bit too is that, you know, spousal caregiver relationships and child caregiver relationships can often be different. One similarity is that in both situations, you're taking on the responsibility of this person's life, and you're caring for them, and pretty much directing them in everything that they have to do. But something that can happen in caregiver relationships with a child is a role reversal, or feels like role reversal. So it feels like, you know, I've heard someone say, "I feel like I'm my mom's mom. Like, I feel like I'm taking care of my mom's mom," or "I feel like I'm becoming her." And so that can be a challenging dynamic to adjust to as well. I always recommend that if you start to feel that way, like you don't like that, like you wish that you didn't feel like you're your mother's mom, you may, you know, want to do activities that allow her to be your mom. So she may not be able to, you know, stir a cake batter, at Thanksgiving that may be too many steps to try to bake a whole cake. But we use a technique called scaffolding, and it's basically you limit the steps that it takes to do something, but you still give them some of their willpower. You give them their own responsibilities so that they feel like they are contributing. So if you are a child wanting to connect with your parent again, maybe on Thanksgiving, give them just the bowl to stir and say, "Oh, Mom, I love when you make this cake for us every year. Can you please, thank you for stirring this. Could you stir this?" And so she'll feel like she is, in her role as your mother, and it can even bring back some great memories for you. There's always a way. There's always a way to reconnect. There's always a way to offer a different way of doing tasks together. And it's not going to go perfect every time, and majority of the time, a lot of the stress falls on you. But it's a language, and it takes time to learn. And something with spousal relationships too that can be a hard thing to adjust to is taking on some of their roles. Like sometimes people, this is just an example, but maybe one of their loved ones did all the finances and did all of the detailed work, and their loved one gets dementia. Now they find themselves doing all the detailed work and having to do these things that are stressful and not in their natural skill set. So we have to take it day by day and realize I'm caring for this loved one, but I'm also taking on new skills, and maybe I need help with these new skills, or maybe I need another family member that can help me with this. Because caregivers, we take on a lot. We take on everything. So, but it takes a whole village to care for someone with dementia. So just want to say that in case you didn't hear it. It's okay to ask for help. So now what I want to go over with us is the 3 R's of communication. This is a when in doubt, my loved one is doing something that I don't understand, or they're making up a story that I don't understand, and I really want to connect with them. Or maybe they're being really aggressive, or they're agitated, and I don't know what to do. Like, I need to get them to bathe, or I need to get them to eat, or I need to get them to, not believe a hallucination that they're believing. So what I'm going to go over with you is the 3 R's of communication. So the 3 R's of communication are respond to emotion, reality check, and remember their freedom. Let's see, someone just asked, will this be accessible later so I can have my children see it? That would be awesome, Barbara. Maybe perhaps someone here at Your Life can record it for us, or let's see, even, I don't want to do too much I don't want to lose you guys at all. So let's see here. We'll work on that, Barbara. We would love to work on that. Okay. So what the 3 R's of communication are respond to emotion, do a reality check, and remember their freedom. Okay. So let's go. I'll give you an example. Okay. I'm going to give you this example, and then we're going to talk about it with the 3 R's. So let's say that you are taking your dad to the grocery store, okay? You're just picking him up. I don't know if this would really happen right now because of COVID, but this is just an example. So let's pretend there's no COVID, and you are taking your dad to the grocery store. So you're driving to the grocery store, and your dad turns over and says to you, I'm just so happy that we are going to a family reunion right now. I'm so glad that I'm going to get to see all of my family members. And this is great. We're on our way to Alabama. Thank you for driving. And you're sitting there and you're thinking, we're just in Tallahassee and we're just going to the grocery store, and that's not true. And oh goodness. And so then perhaps you say to Dad, we're not doing that. We're going to the grocery store. We're going and we're going to come right back. We're not going to see any family. We're not going to do any of that. We're actually in Tallahassee. And then perhaps he says back, no, we're on our way. What time are we getting there? And he continues to believe Alabama, family reunion. and it becomes this banter back and forth of confusion. And by the time you get to the grocery store, you are just head palm and you're tired and even more stressed than you were before. So how can we avoid something like that? How can we avoid these stressful conversations and to not make them more agitated, right? So we enter into their reality by doing this. One thing that you don't want to say is, we're not on our way to Alabama. We don't want to disagree. So never disagree with someone and go with the flow. It's almost like the rules of improvisation are the same for the rules of caring for someone with dementia. We have to go with what they're saying. So one thing with the first R is respond to emotion. So we will say to ourselves, I wonder what they're feeling right now. It seems like he's excited about a family reunion. We're not going to one, but it seems like he's excited. So we have to think about, okay, that's what he's feeling right now. He's feeling good. He's feeling excited. Then we have to do a reality check. We have to think, what is his reality right now? Not my reality, but what's his? He really thinks we're going to one. He really thinks we're going to a family reunion. Okay. All right. Okay. And then lastly, we have to think, remember their freedom. Well, if I say we're not going to a family reunion, then he's not going to feel free to share his feelings with me. He's not going to feel good about himself. So maybe I should just allow him to express his, to be free and just to go with this. So when we think in that way, then we're able to kind of turn back to them and say, you're right. It is a beautiful day and this is great, and I love this family reunion that we're going to, and it's just a great day to be with you. And you leave it at that. Maybe you say, and we're going to the grocery store to pick up some food for it, and then you drive home, and more often than not, they'll kind of forget that conversation. But it helps ease the tension. It helps ease their mind. So if you have any questions about the 3 R's of communication, I'd be happy to answer them. This can be used in so many different ways. Another example we give is like if you're sitting with mom at church and she continues to get up and like point over to someone and say, oh, there's my friend Sally. I have to go watch her kids later this afternoon. And you're thinking, oh, she's not watching her kids. We're not doing that today. Well, it could be that perhaps your mother, used to watch someone's kids after church during the afternoon. Maybe that's something that they used to do. So in their mind, they're reverting back to that. So instead of saying, we're not doing that today, Mom, she may continue to get agitated and think, the third thing is remember their freedom. Remember their freedom. Sorry, I'm just answering some questions on here. Yes, so we want to allow them to express themselves. So in that situation, if she says, I need to go watch their kids, you don't want to say, Mom, sit down, you don't need to do that, because that's inhibiting her freedom and she's going to want to continue to get up. So instead, you may have to come up with, it's called the therapeutic lie. It's a word we use a lot where we make up a little lie to ease their emotions, to help them feel better. So we would say, Mom, actually don't worry. I already talked with that lady over there and she's got someone to watch her kids this afternoon. It's going to be okay. The words, it's going to be okay, are huge for people with dementia, and everything's all right. They just want to know that everything's all right. They want to know that everything's taken care of. And whatever we can do to help them know that things are taken care of, that can be so helpful and so beneficial for them. Awesome. So those are the 3 R's of communication. And it's important to remember, I always like to talk a bit about aggressive behavior because that happens. People can get really aggressive and they can be really angry. And we have to remember what we talked about at the beginning of this presentation is people with dementia, they are usually defensive because they want to do something on their own. So remembering their freedom is so important, as to offer them a solution or to give them options, rather than saying, don't do this, don't do that, no, it's not safe. They're going to get pretty defensive with that, especially men who perhaps had jobs where they went out into the world and they did things, and women do that too. I'm just giving an example, but to know that they have the freedom to say what they need to, and to try to avoid using words like no, don't do this, don't do that, because it can just kind of get them to be more agitated. So something else that I want to mention too is the validation method. Oh, somebody has a question. How would you handle it if your loved one thinks you are someone else, like your mom? Would you go with the flow? So that depends on, it depends on your comfort level and what you feel comfortable doing. So sometimes sometimes people will say, will live into that role, and they will, that day, if your loved one believes that you are their mom, sometimes I've heard people will just kind of go about their day and care for their loved one as if they were their mom, and that tends to ease tension. But then on the other hand, some people say that's really uncomfortable. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be my husband's mom. So in that case, you may want to do something. Actually, kind of goes into what I'm going to go over next is the validation method. So you may say to them, it sounds like you are talking about your mom a lot. Could you tell me more about your mom? Or you could pull out a picture of that person's mom and say, this is, maybe don't say, I'm not your mom, but say, it sounds like you're thinking about your mom a lot. Could you tell me more about her? And they will perhaps talk about it more with you, and come to realize that, you're not their mom. So you can either choose to be them, or you can use the validation method and try to kind of get them out of that mindset too. And that is one of the hardest things. And definitely recommend there's some great resources out there for just awesome books on Alzheimer's and things like role reversal or spousal confusion about who they are. And a great book that we like to give to people is The Mindful Caregiver. I know it's available online on Amazon, and you can also check it out from the Alzheimer's Project. But there's some stories in there about how people, go through role reversal and go through changes like that. But a lot of it, in summary, is to go with the flow, or to choose to validate and choose to show them pictures and kind of help them. So it just depends on how they respond and what you feel the most comfortable with. But the validation theory emphasizes empathy and listening. It views people with Alzheimer's as unique and worthwhile, and as being in the final stages of life. So something else that people with dementia do, they may bring up someone that's already passed away, and they say, oh, I see John, and there's no one else in the room. Or they may talk about someone that that they're living in a situation that they would have been in high school. So they start talking about things that they did in their teenage years, or different things throughout their life. And one thing that we don't want to do is say, that's not happening now, or that person's dead. We really want to actually ask them questions, because they're bringing it up for a reason. It's something that they want to talk about. So if you have time, sometimes it's easier to just redirect them to something else if they continue to bring something up that is annoying. That's the reality. Sometimes they can do things that are annoying, and we can redirect them. Or we can ask them questions and say, it sounds like you're bringing up your cousin a lot. You're bringing up this trip you took when you were 13 a lot. Tell me more about that, because they may have some unresolved things that they want to share, especially with family members too. So as we're getting close to the end of our time together, I just want to do just a quick summary of anything that might have been missed during this presentation. So one thing that we want to do, these are just kind of like my last little skills and tips for you all. We want to remember that behaviors are an attempt to communicate for people with dementia. So you may have a loved one that sits there and taps his hands on his lap all day long. Or you may have a loved one who hums a lot, and does these things, and it seems like what's the point of these behaviors that they continue to do. We have to remember that's their attempt to communicate. So sometimes just sitting, can indicate, and doing the same thing over and over, or sometimes people with dementia will tear up little pieces of paper or do things that seem like they're just trying to busy their hands. Well, they may be bored. They may need something to do, especially during this time of being in quarantine. We have to provide activities for them, and often. So something that can be really helpful, for example, is if your loved one is sitting there, doesn't have anything to do, and they're perhaps doing an unfavorable behavior that is distracting or irritating, you may want to give them something to do, like give them a load of laundry to fold, have them fold it, go in the room, unfold it all, and bring it back in and have them do it again, and just say, this would be so helpful if you would help me fold laundry. They like things for them to do. They like to be given things where they know that they are being helpful to you. So that is one thing that we recommend doing. Something else that can be helpful for people with dementia is giving them a task that is familiar to what they used to do when they, in their previous job. So maybe your loved one signed papers all day long, or maybe they, did work with, a book, or maybe they were a teacher. You want to give them opportunities to use skills like that again. So you may hand them a stack of papers and say, I really need someone to sign off on all of these. Would you mind signing these for me, please? And they may say, sure, and they'll spend the next hour signing papers. Or you could hand them a book and say, I really need to find an article for this presentation. Maybe that's what they did when they were younger. So you have them flip through the article and try to find something. So it keeps them occupied, and it's an activity that feels adult. It feels like something that they want to do, versus sometimes people don't always want to do arts and crafts or do things like bingo. So these are just some tips and things that could be helpful. You always want to speak to a person with dementia with a clear tone of voice and speak positively. They pick up on everything. So negative tone of voice can make them feel bad. So smiling and being happy, even if you're not having a good day, finding ways to bring a positive attitude. And whenever I give this presentation in person, I can always see it on everyone's face, and they're like, you want me to be happy all day long after I've been caring for my loved one all day long? It's hard. and I say, you do whatever you need to do, but know that a smile can really help people. And you're doing, with everything that you do, you are doing an incredible job. You are doing so much for your loved one and giving of yourself, and you need to know that you are doing everything that you can for them, and that you're providing the best care that you can. And so caregivers often don't give themselves a pat on the back or do things for themselves because they're so busy with their loved one. But I just want to remind you that you're doing a good job. And also know too that we all like a sense of control, especially people with dementia. So if they are in a place where you can give them options, allow them to choose things, like to choose what they want to have for dinner, or to choose what piece of paper they want to use for an arts and crafts activity. But we also have to remember that too many options is too much. So versus having 5 options, you may say, do you want pancakes for dinner, or do you want eggs? Do you want to use this blue sheet of paper, or do you want to use this white sheet of paper? Or you may just hand them a blue sheet of paper and say, here, you're going to use this. So it's just based on what you know about your loved one, kind of what options you can give them and what not. But you always want to provide an opportunity for them to participate in something meaningful. And something also too that we don't think about a lot is people with dementia are often very affected by their environment. So if we have an environment where there's lots of clutter around, or maybe you haven't done the laundry yet, so the laundry is just kind of sitting in the corner of the room, and the TV's on, and there's, homework from the kids, after being home, doing all their homework at home, and there's stuff around. People with dementia sometimes can walk into a room and just, we don't even realize, but they can feel very overstimulated just by all the items in a room. So they may, you may be trying to get them to do something, like to get them into the next room or to get them to sit down, and they're just looking around or they're distracted. So clearing your environment, clearing the things around to create a more calm space can actually really help them a lot. Especially if you're trying to talk to them and the TV's on. They have a hard time filtering out sound, so they may only hear the TV while you're talking to them. So limiting sounds, limiting distractions in the environment can be super, super helpful. This is my gold nugget at the end of the day. At the end of the day, everyone with dementia just wants comfort and security. They want to know that everything's okay. So however we can speak to them, use language with them that shows that we are there to help them, that we are there to provide security and comfort, is key. And just saying it's okay and everything's all right with a pat on the hand can really help a lot. So that concludes our time together today. Well, it concludes my presentation. And I know this is almost a crash course in understanding dementia. There's so much there. If you heard something in this that you think, oh, maybe I want to talk about that more, please call the Alzheimer's Project in Tallahassee. Reach out to Your Life. We are here to provide care and provide assistance for people with dementia. And so we have support groups. We do free over-the-phone counseling. And we have services available through our online support group on Facebook. You just have to request to be added to it, and we will accept you. We've got these great live videos through Tapestry that you can watch. And I know Vicki Rose did a presentation a couple weeks ago too, that she's from the TMH Memory Disorders Clinic, and she's got some valuable information for you as well. So no man stands alone caring for someone with dementia. We are here to support you, and especially during COVID-19. So I'll go through some of these questions here. Let's see. I'm going to get close to the screen. Okay. Going with the flow. We will see about making this accessible. So we have some people whose loved ones are at a memory care facility. Some people are caring for their loved ones at home. And something this is just a little fun tidbit that I heard someone say, that they are interacting with their loved one through the window at their facility, and they've been doing things like bringing props to make the meeting more exciting, or they've been playing games through the window, like they'll put tape on the window and play tic-tac-toe. Oh, great. Thank you, Kathy. Yes. Yeah, I'm so happy to be doing this discussion with you all. Yeah. And going back to, talking to someone through the window, I heard that somebody put tape on the window and did tic-tac-toe. So their loved one on the inside was doing the X's and they were doing the O's on the outside. And it was a great activity, not being able to see each other in person, but to be able to interact through the window in that way can be good. How to access those videos you mentioned. I am not sure, but I will definitely get back to you on that. And also too, we also have a lot of videos on our Alzheimer's Project support group too, where we have a lot of this information is on our support group if you'd like to be added to it. And I was just going to ask about the tips for window visits. Yes, so tic-tac-toe is good. Sometimes a lot of people don't think of this, but because it can feel kind of flat, like, and you're seeing your loved one and they may not know who you are. So sometimes, especially if you're wearing a face mask too, and you're waving and you're wanting to interact with them, but you may even want to ask the person at the facility to play music on your loved one's side. And maybe you can listen to the same song, but music can kind of lighten the mood. Or maybe it's a song that you both used to sing together, and so it can help remind them who you are, just to lighten the mood of that visit. Definitely. Alrighty. Well, we are just right at time. So this has been such a great opportunity, and I am going to I'll just stay on here for a little while as I take roll of just how many people that we've had on this live stream. Okay, so I'm just gonna come, hi everyone, I'm gonna come a little bit closer here. Okay.